The last words my daughter ever said to me in person were, "You're toxic, Mom. I can't do this anymore." She stood in the doorway of her first apartment, arms crossed, eyes hard with a kind of anger I never believed she'd turn on me. My name is Karen, 52 years old, mother of 2, and until that day I thought I was the kind of mum who'd never lose her children. But that morning I lost Emma. Or maybe I'd been losing her for years and just refused to see it. She was always my sunshine kid, the one who left drawings in my purse and made me birthday cards out of construction paper. Her father and I separated when she was 10. She took it harder than her brother did, asking questions I couldn't answer. Why can't you try harder? Why can't you just love each other again? I tried to shield her from the mess, but you can't mop up heartbreak with good intentions. I remarried when she was in high school. Emma never warmed to David too quick to find fault, too slow to forgive. She said he changed me, made me brittle, and made home a place she ran from instead of to. I suppose I was too busy surviving to see the distance growing between us. Bills, work, David's moods, my own exhaustion. I'd text Emma. She'd respond with a thumbs up or a busy mom. I'd ask her to visit. She'd say she had assignments, a shift at the cafe, plans with friends. Her brother Jake came home for holidays, but Emma stopped, first with excuses, then with silence. Last summer, she blocked my number after a fight something about boundaries, about me not respecting her choices. I called, left voicemails, wrote emails she never answered. On her birthday, I sent flowers she never acknowledged. I told myself she'd come around, that all daughters pull away, then return, that she was just finding herself and I needed to give her space. But every day the silence stretched longer. Every day it felt more like punishment than protection. Then, last fall, my mother died. I called Emma from the hospital waiting room, numb and desperate. The call went straight to voicemail. I left a message, just, "Emma, please, I need you. Grandma's gone." No reply. At the funeral, she didn't show. Jake said she was traveling, but I could see it on his face. She just didn't want to see me. After the funeral, I sat alone in my dark living room, the house too large, too quiet, filled with old photos of a family that no longer existed. I stared at Emma's face in every frame and wondered how love could turn into this unbearable emptiness, this banishment. I spent the winter in a fog, going to work, coming home to silence, watching the phone that never rang. David was no comfort. He said, "You coddled her, it's on you." I started to believe him. Maybe it was on me. Maybe I pushed too hard, loved too fiercely, clung too tight to a child who needed to break free. One morning in March, I woke up before dawn, the house cold, my heart colder. I packed a suitcase, left a note on the kitchen table for David. "I need to go. I'll be in touch when I'm ready," and drove east. I didn't tell anyone where I was going. No farewell, no explanation. I just drove until the sun came up, until my phone lost signal, until the ache in my chest dulled to a manageable throb. I rented a tiny apartment in a city where nobody knew my name, bought new dishes and started a new job in a bookstore. I changed my number. For the first time in my life, I disappeared. I thought, if Emma doesn't want me in her life, I'll give her exactly what she asked for. I will become nobody, nowhere, nothing to anyone I once loved. The first weeks in the new city felt like living inside a snow globe, quiet, suspended, everything unfamiliar and strangely beautiful. I rented a one-bedroom above a bakery that opened at 5 every morning, the smell of bread and coffee seeping through my floorboards. I bought a second-hand bicycle, rode it to the riverfront, and let the wind tangle my hair. I told myself I was free, but the truth was I was untethered adrift, not anchored. I didn't tell anyone where I'd gone. Not David, not Jake, certainly not Emma. I deleted my Facebook, let my old email account fill with unread messages. I changed my phone number, left my wedding ring in a drawer, and started introducing myself as Kay instead of Karen. It was easier that way. No history, no baggage, just a woman with a suitcase and a story she wasn't ready to tell. The bookstore job was a blessing. The owner, Miriam, was a widow in her 70s with a sharp tongue and a soft heart. She hired me on the spot after I spent an hour rearranging her poetry section. "You look like someone who needs a fresh start," she said, not unkindly. I nodded, grateful she didn't ask for references. I shelved books, made tea for customers, and learned the names of the regulars. I liked the rhythm of it, the bell over the door, the dust motes in the morning light, the way people's faces softened when they found a book they'd forgotten they loved. At night, I lay in bed and tried not to think about Emma. But memory is a stubborn thing. I'd see a mother and daughter laughing over pastries in the bakery and my chest would ache. I'd hear a song Emma used to play on the piano and tears would sting my eyes before I could stop them. I wondered if she missed me, if she ever scrolled through old photos or reread my messages. I wondered if she hated me, or worse, if she didn't think of me at all. Sometimes I'd draft letters to her in my head. "I'm sorry. I love you. I wish I'd done things differently." But I never wrote them down. I told myself I was respecting her boundaries, giving her the space she demanded. But the truth was I was afraid that reaching out would only push her further away, or that she'd reply with silence, confirming the worst thing a mother can imagine, that her child is better off without her. Spring turned to summer. I planted herbs in pots on my windowsill, learned to cook for one, and started a journal I never finished. I made friends with the woman who ran the flower shop next door and let her talk me into yoga classes on Saturday mornings. I laughed at her jokes, let her braid my hair, and pretended I was someone who belonged here. But every night, when the city quieted and the bakery closed, I'd sit by my window and watch the streetlights flicker on. I'd think about the life I'd left behind the house, the family dinners, the sound of Emma's laughter echoing down the hallway. I wondered if she'd ever forgive me for disappearing. I wondered if I'd ever forgive myself. I didn't know it then, but the world I'd tried so hard to leave behind was about to come looking for me. And when it did, I would have to decide, was I ready to be found? By late summer, I'd become fluent in invisibility. It's strange how quickly you can shrink your world days measured in small rituals. Open the shop, sweep the floor, recommend a novel, make polite conversation. Close up. Walk home as the sun sets behind unfamiliar roofs. Sometimes, if I was feeling brave, I'd take a different route and let myself get lost on purpose. I relished the anonymity. No one knew my story, my failures, or the name of the daughter who no longer claimed me. Yet grief is a living thing. It finds you in the quiet and in the crowd. It found me in aisle 3 of the grocery store when I reached for a box of Emma's favorite tea before remembering she'd never visited. It found me in the bookstore when a woman my age came in with her teenage daughter, their laughter spilling out like music I'd almost forgotten. I smiled, told them about the new mystery novels, then excused myself to the stockroom, holding my breath until the ache passed. I started to realize I'd spent years performing motherhood packing lunches, staying up late for science projects, offering advice whether it was wanted or not. I thought love was a shield, something I could wrap around Emma to protect her from every disappointment, every bad decision. I see now how tight my grip must have felt. Maybe she needed air, and all I offered was more of myself. The guilt sat heavy, but I clung to it. It was proof I hadn't stopped caring, even if caring was why she left. Miriam noticed my moods, though she never pried. "Some wounds take longer to close," she said one afternoon when I burned the scones and apologized for the 3rd time that week. "You don't have to rush the healing, you just have to keep walking." She'd lost her son years ago, car accident, sudden, senseless. I think she recognized the shape of my sorrow and respected its boundaries. Still, some nights, I'd imagine Emma on the other side of the country, living her new life, maybe telling her friends that her mother was difficult, or overbearing, or just gone. Did she ever wonder where I was? Did she tell herself the story in a way that made sense, where she was the hero and I the villain? I tried to let her version live, tried to make peace with being misunderstood. Then, in late August, the first call came. My old phone, which I kept powered off in a kitchen drawer just in case. On a whim, I charged it and turned it on. 5 voicemails, all from Jake. His voice tight with worry. "Mom, are you okay? Emma's been trying to reach you. Something happened. Please call us." Another message, more urgent. "Mom, I know you're angry, but we need you. Emma needs you." My hands shook as I listened. I sat down at my tiny kitchen table, heart pounding. I'd spent months convincing myself that my absence didn't matter. Now suddenly it did. For a moment I felt the old instinct rush in, fix everything, be the mother who saves the day. But I'd built this new life on the idea that I could only save myself. I stared at the phone, torn between the daughter who had banished me and the freedom I'd forced myself to embrace. Outside, the city was waking up, bakers rolling dough, buses rumbling past, people living their lives unaware of the small, invisible crisis unfolding in my kitchen. I looked at the sunlight on the floorboards, the plants on my windowsill, the stack of library books waiting to be read. I realized I was at a crossroads. The life I'd left behind was calling, but I wasn't sure I could answer. That night, the old phone felt heavier in my hand than it had any right to. I played Jake's voicemails on a loop, trying to decode the urgency straining his voice. "Emma's been trying to reach you. Something happened." I imagined 1,000 possibilities, a car accident, heartbreak, illness, something unspeakable. I pressed my palm to my chest, steadying myself as if the distance between us could be measured in heartbeats. For hours, I paced the apartment, replaying every moment that led me here. The slammed doors, the unspoken apologies, the stubborn pride on both sides. I wanted so badly to call back, to erase the months of silence with a single word. But what if Emma's need wasn't for her mother, but for the idea of me, the woman I used to be, not the ghost I'd become? I slept restlessly that night, waking before dawn to the sound of rain against the window. In that grey half-light, I weighed my choices. I could call Jake. I could return, step into the breach as if nothing had changed. But something inside me resisted, a raw place that flinched at the thought of being needed only in crisis, not in love. At the bookstore, Miriam noticed the shadows under my eyes. "You look like you've seen a ghost," she said, handing me a cup of tea. I almost laughed. "Something like that," I replied, voice thick. She didn't press, just squeezed my hand and let me be. I spent the morning shelving books with numb fingers, my thoughts circling the same anxious drain. By noon, I'd made a decision. I took a break outside, breathing in the scent of wet pavement and lilacs. I dialed Jake's number, my hands shaking. He answered on the first ring, voice hoarse with relief. "Mom? Oh, thank God. We've been so worried. Emma, she's in trouble. She's been asking for you." "Is she all right?" I asked, bracing myself. There was a pause. "She's not okay. She had a panic attack at work, ended up in the ER. She kept saying she needed you, that she was sorry. I didn't know what to do. I tried to reach you, but—" His voice broke. Guilt lashed through me, sharp and sudden. I wanted to believe I'd left for my own healing, but maybe I'd just made myself unreachable when my daughter needed me most. "I'm here now," I told him, though I wasn't sure what that meant. "Tell Emma I love her. I just needed some time. I needed to find myself again." Jake was quiet then. "She'll want to hear that from you. Come home, Mom, please." I didn't answer right away. I watched the city traffic, strangers moving in and out of the bakery, lives intersecting for a moment before drifting apart. I thought about the life I'd built here, fragile and unfinished, and the life I'd left behind, battered and raw. Somewhere between those two worlds, I needed to find a bridge. But for now, all I could do was breathe, hold the phone, and listen to my son's voice, one thread of connection, still unbroken. I spent the rest of that afternoon sitting at my kitchen table, the city humming outside my window, my old phone open beside a cooling cup of tea. Every instinct I had as a mother screamed at me to pack a bag, catch a train, show up at Emma's door and take her in my arms like I used to when she woke from nightmares as a child. But I was no longer sure my comfort was wanted or if I even knew how to give it. Jake texted again that evening, just 3 words. Please call Emma. I stared at the message for a long time, thumb hovering over the screen. I dialed, my heart pounding so hard it was all I could hear. She answered on the second ring. Her voice was quiet, fragile, nothing like the fire and certainty that had driven me away months before. Mum? She sounded so young, so small that it hurt to breathe. I'm here, sweetheart, I managed. Silence hung between us, heavy as stone. I'm sorry. Her voice broke. I didn't know who else to call. I thought I could do this on my own. I was so angry, and now I just feel lost. I know I said I didn't want you in my life, but I need you. A wave of relief crashed through me, so sharp it was almost pain. I wanted to say, I never stopped loving you, but the words caught in my throat. Instead, I said, you don't have to do this alone, Emma. I'm not angry. I just needed space, too. We both did. She started to cry. I listened, helpless, wishing I could reach through the phone and hold her. She told me about the panic attack, the hospital, how she'd tried to call but my number was disconnected. She said she was scared that Jake had found her shaking on the kitchen floor and hadn't left her side since. I closed my eyes and tried to picture her apartment, the one I'd helped her decorate, now filled with shadows and silence. Do you want me to come? I asked, voice barely above a whisper. She hesitated then. I don't know, I want to see you, but I'm afraid. What if you're disappointed in me? My chest tightened. Oh, honey, there's nothing you could do that would make me stop loving you. I just want you to be okay. We talked until the sun went down, voices growing steadier as the hours slipped by. She told me about her life, her job, her friends, the loneliness that crept in when she least expected it. I told her about the bookstore, the river, and the way the city looked at dawn from my tiny apartment. We didn't solve anything. There were no neat apologies, no magic words to fix the past. But something old and precious began to mend itself, thread by fragile thread. When we finally said goodnight, I sat in the darkness and felt the ache of longing and hope tangled together in my chest. I knew Emma wasn't ready to see me yet. Not really. But the wall between us had cracked, just enough for a little light to seep through. That night, for the first time in months, I slept without dreams of running or hiding. The world I'd built for myself felt less like an exile and more like a refuge, a place to heal, to wait, to hope that one day my daughter might walk through the door and find me here, still loving her, still choosing her no matter how far I'd gone. Late August slipped into September and the air in the city cooled. I found myself standing by the window at dusk more often, letting memories wash over me, not to drown in them, but to see what remained after the pain. Emma and I spoke every few days now, always cautiously. Our words circled old wounds, sometimes brushing against them, sometimes tiptoeing around. My heart ached for what we'd lost, but I understood finally that neither of us could go back to the people we were. Love, I learned, is not about possession or proximity, but about honoring the space between two souls and hoping that one day they'll choose to close the distance. One evening, Jake called to say he'd be visiting Emma for the weekend. She's doing better, he said. She asks about you a lot. His voice was gentle, careful. You could come, if you're ready. I stared at the invitation. at the hope tucked inside it. I realized I was ready not to resume the life I'd left, but to meet my daughter as she was, and as I was now. I packed an overnight bag, just enough for a short visit. On the way out, I left a note for Miriam at the bookstore, promising I'd be back in a few days. The drive felt strangely familiar, like retracing the outline of an old scar. The city where I'd vanished slid past the window, replaced by highways, then by the neighborhoods that once anchored my world. Emma opened the door herself. Her hair was longer, her eyes softer, but I recognized the vulnerability in her smile. She stepped aside and let me in. The apartment was warm with the smell of tea and the faint trace of her favorite vanilla candle. We sat on the couch, awkward at first, then slowly the conversation began to flow, stops and starts, apologies and laughter, the tentative weaving of a new tapestry from the torn threads of the past. She told me about the panic attacks, about the nights she'd wished I was there, about the guilt she carried for pushing me away. I told her about the silence of my new life, about learning to listen to myself, about the ways I'd forgiven both of us. We didn't solve everything. There are hurts that take years to heal and some that never do. But we sat together in the gentle truth of our imperfection, and it was enough. By the time I left, the sun was coming up. Emma hugged me tight, tearful but lighter. "Promise me you'll call when you get home," she said. I promised. I meant it. Back in my apartment, I poured myself a cup of tea and stood by the window, watching the city wake. I thought about all the ways I'd tried to outrun pain, how I'd believed disappearing would spare us both. But loss and love are twins. They follow you wherever you go. The difference now was that I no longer needed to hide from either. A week later, Emma texted me a photo of the two of us side by side on her couch, both smiling, a little uncertain but genuine. "Home isn't a place, Mom," she wrote. "It's us, learning how to begin again." I pinned that photo to my fridge, right above my first rent receipt from this new life. Some days, when the world feels too quiet or too full, I look at it and remember. Even when everything you know falls away, it's possible to build something new. Not the life you lost, but the one you choose, imperfect, unfinished, and yours.